Xiao Honglian and Wei Dinghai had no choice but to face the Xingtian Legion in its most powerful state. At this moment, the fighting spirit of the entire Xingtian Legion was at its peak. They had not participated in the previous battle, but had only observed from the sidelines, ready and waiting to join the fray. As a result, they gave Xiao Honglian and Wei Dinghai the feeling of a pack of bloodthirsty wolves. In their hearts, Xiao Honglian and Wei Dinghai couldn't help but feel heavy. If a conflict were to break out between them at this moment, it was very likely that they themselves would be in danger. Xiao Honglian angrily furrowed his brows and shouted loudly toward Xingtian, "Xingtian, why didn't you follow our agreement to attack Zhang Yi's hideout? Why are you appearing here now?" Xingtian smiled coldly and said, "Isn't your group's intention already clear? You plan to use us to seize enormous resources. Both of you are masters of great resources. I'm here just to collect a small toll, isn't that fair?" The two large bases facing Xingtian were extremely furious at being openly robbed. However, they could do nothing because they were heavily injured and could not withstand another large-scale battle. Wei Dinghai said to Xingtian, "I don't understand. If you cooperate with us to defeat Zhang Yi, we can then share the Xishan area. But why did you choose to help no one? You already knew Zhang Yi's situation." This was a suspicion in Wei Dinghai's heart. He was determined to ask clearly, even if it meant failing. Xiao Honglian also stared intently at Xingtian, unclear about his reasons. Xingtian crossed his arms and said indifferently, "The reason is very simple. The Qingpu base does not have as many vehicles and energy resources as you do, nor can it manage as many forces. Even if we win this battle, I would still not be a match for the two large bases when it comes to sharing territory. So Zhang Yi offered me 10 tons of food, and I happily agreed. He extended his two arms and gave me 10 tons of food without me having to do anything. Meanwhile, you promised empty words for me to risk my life fighting. You tell me, what should I choose?" Xingtian's words left Wei Dinghai and Xiao Honglian at a loss for a rebuttal. In reality, they indeed had such plans. Once they defeated Zhang Yi and destroyed his hideout, they would immediately use their high mobility to seize the best areas and resources. Regarding this part, the Baixue sect and Qingpu could not compete with them. However, they did not expect that Xingtian would think of forming an alliance with Zhang Yi. Xingtian didn't want to waste time with them and said, "Let's talk about resolving this matter." His smile became even more bizarre. "How much material will you offer to buy your way out?" Xiao Honglian and Wei Dinghai had no choice but to use a large amount of supplies to buy Xingtian's forgiveness. In Xingtian's heart, he was happy. In this battle, they didn't have to fight at all, yet they profited greatly from the trade of supplies. Furthermore, with the weakening of the two large bases, they would become the leading force in Tianhai City from now on. Everyone thought I, Xingtian, was a fool, but now let's see who the real fools are. Xingtian laughed happily. After the war ended, Zhang Yi decided to send Zhou Kuo to treat Liang Yu. The others chose to rest in the living room to recover some of their strength. Zhang Yi said to everyone, "Everyone, you've worked hard. Today we celebrate with a feast." The warm and bright space of the shelter brought an infinite sense of warmth to everyone, especially after a great battle, relaxing on the soft sofa in this magnificent villa. Enjoying a fragrant cup of coffee lifted everyone's spirits. Zhang Yi happily told everyone to replenish what they had consumed. Zhang Yi went to the medical room to bring food to Zhou Kuo. As soon as Zhou Kuo saw Zhang Yi, she eagerly asked, "Has the war ended?" Zhang Yi inquired about Liang Yu's condition, asking if her injuries were serious. Zhou Kuo took a sip of coffee and told Zhang Yi, "The wound is quite deep, but I've stitched it up." Zhou Kuo added, "She is a mutant of the enhancement type, her body's recovery ability is much better than that of ordinary people, so there's no major obstacle." Saying this, Zhou Kuo glanced at Zhang Yi with a hint of jealousy and said, "Mutants really are lucky with all sorts of advantages." Zhang Yi laughed. He knew Zhou Kuo still remembered the ice crystal in his hand, but when he thought of the mysteries of the Baixue sect, Zhang Yi was still not completely at ease. He said, "Your medical skills are probably not inferior to any special abilities, right? In critical moments, we need your medical skills to save lives, don't we?" Zhang Yi hugged Zhou Kuo and laughed, saying, "In our group, we might be able to do without a mutant, but we can't do without a doctor. Never underestimate yourself. You are very important to us." Zhou Kuo smiled, feeling extremely happy with Zhang Yi's concern. Zhang Yixian and the remaining soldiers returned. Seeing their numbers reduced by half, the followers felt tense. However, when Zhang Yixian stepped forward, bowed before Yuan Kongye, and declared, "Leader, we have completed the mission. Under the blessing of the snow god, we have achieved a great victory. The bases of Zhaoyu and Yangsheng have suffered heavy losses inflicted by us, significantly weakening them. Their power can no longer threaten us. As soon as these words were spoken, cheers of excitement resounded everywhere. Many people, with tears of happiness in their eyes, embraced each other. The Baishue sect had been waiting for such a victory for a long time. Finally, they had won, marking a historic moment. In Yuan Kongye's eyes, a glimmer of hope shone. She stepped forward, took Zheng Yixian's hand, and said, "You have worked hard. The gods will not forget your combat merits." Zheng Yixian looked up at her and said calmly, "But we have also lost many loyal followers." Yuan Kongye, with a gentle smile at the corners of her mouth, folded her arms as if a mother was holding her children and said, "They have not disappeared. They have returned here. I can feel their presence." Zheng Yixian hurriedly responded, "May everyone who has been lost stay here with the leader." In Yuan Kongye's eyes, a faint sorrowful light shone. "Now, nothing can stop us from expanding our steps. We want the radiance of the snow god to spread everywhere in the city. Next, it will be nationwide, and even worldwide. The snow god will become the only true god. The glory of the Baishue sect will last forever." All the followers placed their right hands on their chests, looked up to the sky, and shouted, "The glory of the Baishue sect will last forever." Their gazes were like sunlight, seemingly able to dispel the cold of the apocalypse, and they wanted to spread their faith to every corner of the world. After the war, the power dynamics in Tianhai City underwent significant changes. The bases of Zhaoyu and Yangsheng, like the Baishue sect and Qingpu base, suffered heavy losses due to betrayal and attacks. Fortunately, they still retained half of their combat forces and basic resources, which allowed them to avoid complete destruction. However, it would take a long time for them to recover their original strength. The most crucial aspect was caring for the injured and retraining a group of elite soldiers. However, the loss of a large number of mutants was the most devastating blow, as ordinary soldiers could be replaced, but the emergence of new mutants was extremely rare. Thus, they had no choice but to narrow their sphere of influence. All military forces were concentrated at the main base. Not only could they not expand their influence outward, but they also couldn't fully control their own territory. In a situation where the number of escaping slaves was increasing, the Baishue sect propagated their beliefs very cleverly. After many life-and-death battles, they had built a certain level of trust. They shared both hardships and glory. The wife of Uncle Vu invited some girls to play cards together. The sound of card games coming from the living room created a noisy atmosphere but made everyone feel comfortable. Zhang Yi, Su Chunlei, and Uncle Vu seemed to have nothing else to do but play chess or video games together. Their shelter had abundant energy. The lights in their room were always bright thanks to a lighting system worth tens of millions. The cozy space was lit with warm yellow light, and when hungry, they could enjoy fresh cuisine in this space. At other times, they could choose high-end wines from a temperature-controlled wine cabinet, beer, and coffee brewed by Zhou Ke herself. They were enjoying a very comfortable vacation. Perhaps Liang Yu couldn't temporarily forget about this matter, but there was nothing time couldn't heal. Su Chunlei saw Liang Yu walking by and asked, "Liang Yu, are you feeling any better?" Liang Yu turned around with tired eyes, said nothing, and continued walking. Lu Karen patted Su Chunlei's shoulder and said, "Don't mind her. Liang Yu has been like this since she woke up a few days ago. Maybe she still remembers those students." Zhang Yi, who was sitting and playing chess, also spoke up, his mood slightly changing, "Let her be. She doesn't seem to be in any real danger. She just needs some time to calm down. Everyone has to live in the present." Zhang Yi stood up, stretched, and continued, "After the Yangsheng and Zhaoyu bases were heavily damaged, they won't make any major moves for a while. Xingtian took the spoils he gathered, which was a huge gain. The Baishue sect can also freely spread their teachings in Tianhai City. This situation basically declares our victory. At least we don't have to worry about them making any small moves in the short term." Zhang Yi glanced out the window and mumbled, "Is something missing? Too clean." Zhang Yi frowned, thinking, and suddenly realized something. "Wait, the bodies, why are there no bodies after the battle? Over 1,000 bodies were left behind, but now not a single one is visible." Zhang Yi felt a chill. How could over 1,000 bodies suddenly disappear without a trace? He still remembered them from yesterday afternoon. Zhang Yi wasn't too frightened and took a telescope to check carefully again to avoid any mistake. He wondered if they had already been disposed of. However, after meticulously searching, he finally confirmed that he hadn't seen wrong, and it wasn't that the bodies were covered by snow and ice. Those bodies had truly disappeared without a trace. Zhang Yi couldn't help but feel tense. In the apocalypse, there were too many mysterious and inexplicable phenomena. Even creatures could mutate. Could the bodies have changed as well? Zhang Yi took a deep breath, trying to calm himself. He changed into combat clothes, carefully prepared his weapons, and then opened the door to go downstairs. Uncle Vu's wife saw him and asked, "Are you going out?" "It seems they haven't noticed any issues outside." Zhang Yi replied, "It's nothing, just some changes outside that I want to check out." Zhang Yi looked out the window and quietly stepped outside. Holding his gun, Zhang Yi walked step by step towards the old battlefield. This place used to be full of corpses, but now there wasn't a single trace left. The heavy snow from the night before covered many things, but it couldn't completely hide all traces. Over 1,000 bodies disappearing at once would certainly leave some signs. As Zhang Yi approached, he finally noticed something unusual. Right around here, under the snow, he vaguely saw many uneven footprints. It looked like a large army had passed through this place. Moreover, these footprints were not coming towards this place, only leaving it. Zhang Yi was startled, feeling as if something cold was watching him from behind, making the hairs on his neck stand on end. Because he realized these bodies hadn't been stolen by someone, they had gotten up and walked away on their own. Suddenly, a popping sound echoed. Zhang Yi quickly turned around, but there was nothing behind him. Zhang Yi's heart pounded. He had to place his hand on his chest twice to feel somewhat reassured. He let out a sigh of relief. Despite having killed countless people and experienced life-and-death situations, Zhang Yi still felt a chill, even fear, in the face of this bizarre occurrence. He took a deep breath and muttered to himself, "What am I afraid of? I've killed countless living people, a few strange things can't do anything to me." Zhang Yi bravely followed the faint footprints in the snow, moving forward. He realized that the footprints headed east, with no end in sight, and it was unclear where the bodies had gone. Although still apprehensive, Zhang Yi did not dare to follow them alone. He quickly returned to the hideout. Zhang Yi called everyone together. As they sat around the couch, they saw Zhang Yi in his combat attire and felt puzzled. Zhang Yi said, "What I am about to say, don't worry, first take a deep breath to calm down." Hearing this, everyone couldn't help but start to worry, but they followed his instructions. After taking a few deep breaths, Zhang Yi began to speak in the calmest tone possible. "Last night, over 1,000 corpses outside the hideout disappeared without a trace.